Indian didn't nuke the internet with a surprise 2026 lineup. Not yet. What they did do is roll out a 2025 wave that feels like the opening punch for 2026. A new PowerPlus 112 with more shove, track-borrowed chassis/brake spec, and radar plus IMU safety showing up on real showroom bikes. That's not smoke, that's receipts. The new Chieftain PowerPlus is already out there with 126 horsepower and 133 pound-feet, plus a 6-axis IMU for cornering ABS-TC and even rear-facing radar for blind spot and rear collision alerts. Indian's PR and racing programs make it obvious where this is going next. King of the baggers tech filtering straight to the street. So when we talk 2026, we're not guessing. We're connecting the dots they've already laid down. Tonight, I'll cut the hype from the hardware. We'll stack what's confirmed, engines, brakes, electronics, pricing tiers, against what's likely for 2026 based on Indian's 2025 moves. And at the end, we will show how Harley's counterpunch stacks up so you know where to put your money and your miles. The shockwave. It started quietly. No countdown, no press buildup, no leaked dealer poster on social media. Just a headline that hit like a lightning bolt across every biker forum in the country. Indian drops its 2026 lineup. Within hours, Harley groups lit up like a campfire after dark. The loyalists called it noise, a stunt, maybe even a bluff. But when the images rolled out and the first dealer footage surfaced, the mood shifted. This wasn't a facelift. This was a warning shot aimed straight at Milwaukee's heart. For decades, Harley riders carried themselves with a certain pride, earned through time, miles, and steel. The bar and shield logo wasn't just branding, it was bloodline. Then came Indian's reveal, and suddenly that certainty felt shaky. Every conversation in the garages and online threads carried a hint of something rare among old-school riders. Curiosity. Could the rival really have caught up? Insiders described the reveal as controlled chaos. Dealers from Ohio to Oregon reported walk-ins asking questions they hadn't heard in years. Harley owners weren't trading keys, not yet, but they were listening. The feeling wasn't betrayal. It was wonder mixed with worry. Because when an American brand once thought buried decades ago comes roaring back with something this bold, the story isn't about the bikes anymore. It's about pride. And pride always starts with a heartbeat. The kind that rumbles deep enough to shake the floor. The new heart. Underneath the paint and chrome sits what Indian calls the PowerPlus 112E, the evolved twin that changes the conversation. Gone is the rough, heat-heavy temperament of earlier models. In its place lives a smoother, cooler, and smarter powertrain designed to match modern touring demands without losing its pulse. Engineers claim a 20% bump in usable torque compared to the old 108. But what matters more is how that power feels. Linear, deliberate, and instantly responsive. This motor doesn't shout. It growls low and confident. Riders who tested prototypes at closed tracks reported less vibration at idle, quicker climbs through mid-range gears, and most importantly, less roast under the knees during long traffic crawls. Indian's design language still pays homage to classic American muscle, but the inside tells another story. Efficient thermal channels, liquid-cooled heads, and adaptive ignition timing that reads your throttle like a pulse monitor. Dealers call it heritage with a processor. It keeps the soul alive while quietly trimming the frustration that comes with high heat and heavy load. Even die-hard Harley mechanics have admitted the engineering looks clean, almost too clean. Still, one question hangs over the conversation. If Indian can modernize without losing character, what excuse does Harley have? Because a new heart means nothing without a body built to carry it across 1,000 miles of asphalt. If you're still watching, you know this isn't just another bike release. It's a turning point for every American rider. So hit that like button if you're feeling the shift and drop a comment below. I want to know, do you think Harley can still hold the crown? Blueprint of a rival? The secret behind Indian's new rise isn't just horsepower, it's the way they build. Leaked supplier memos and internal slides hint at a new modular frame system that allows quicker assembly and lighter variations across bagger and touring lines. Where Harley doubles down on tradition-heavy tooling, Indian quietly streamlined its plants in Iowa and Illinois, cutting downtime between trims from weeks to days. Insiders say this is where Indian outfoxed everyone. The design team took the vintage silhouette, the flared fenders, the teardrop tank, the recognizable stance, and reworked every internal angle to reduce drag and weight without betraying its lineage. The result looks classic but performs like something sharper, more intentional. Even the weld lines have changed. Cleaner seams, fewer joints, tighter tolerances. Precision manufacturing usually feels sterile, but here it feels almost reverent. When a few journalists were invited behind closed doors to see early builds, one described it best. "They're making art with factory discipline." That's the danger for Harley. It's no longer a fight between nostalgia and innovation. It's a clash between two philosophies of American craft, one forged in sweat and history, the other tempered by science and silence. And yet, for all the factory precision and clever design, the real proof of a motorcycle isn't in the frame. It's in how it behaves when the light turns green. If this has you rethinking your next bike, rethink your kit too. My go-to gear and accessories are linked below. Performance transfer. That's where the racing world slips quietly into the story. The average rider might never watch a King of the Baggers race, but Indian's engineers sure do. Their notebooks from the circuit became blueprints for the showroom. The same radial-mounted Brembos and inverted forks that ripped through Laguna Seca corners now appear, toned down but intact, on production bikes. Lighter alloys, reinforced swing arms, and recalibrated suspension travel translate the aggression of the track into confidence on the highway. It's more than showmanship, it's strategy. Each improvement, every ounce shaved or bolt re-angled, came from lessons learned chasing Harley around the podium. And for the first time, the gap is closing. Riders who've tried the new prototypes describe the experience as stable at speed, balanced under hard braking, and remarkably composed during fast transitions. That kind of handling used to belong to sport bikes, not baggers with fairings big enough to block a storm. But there's something almost poetic about it. Competition that once fueled rivalry, now fuels innovation. Two American giants, trading jabs through engineering, pushing each other into the future. Still, old habits die hard, and some Harley loyalists dismiss it as a temporary burst, a clever play that will fade once Milwaukee strikes back. Yet one truth stands firm. Riders have never had this much choice between pride and progress. But track-borne power means nothing if the ride cooks your knees in traffic. Heat and harmony. Every rider remembers the old complaint. The Pursuit and the Challenger could sing on the highway, but in town, they cooked your knees like you were riding over an open grill. That's where Indian started its quiet revolution. The engineers didn't chase horsepower this time, they chased heat. What came out of that mission was a complete rethinking of airflow and exhaust routing. The reducted lowers now pull warm air away from the rider's legs through hidden side channels that vent toward the rear wheel. It's a small detail, invisible until you feel it. Smart fans, triggered by a dual sensor system, now spin in rhythm with ambient temperature rather than just engine heat, keeping idle moments bearable. The exhaust has been reshaped, its notes softer, deeper, less intrusive when creeping through traffic. Veteran test riders say the difference is night and day. On a 100-mile run through summer heat, cabin temps stay manageable, and stoplights no longer feel like punishment. Harley riders who mocked the earlier models now admit that Indian's engineers may have cracked the thermal code. It's not glamorous engineering, but it's the kind that earns loyalty over time. And once the heat fades, riders start noticing something else, the way the bike dances through corners instead of wrestling them. Lean and control. Torque is useless if the frame can't trust itself. Indian's next target was geometry, the subtle math that decides whether a bagger feels like a touring sofa or a street fighter in disguise. The 2026 lineup introduces a rebalanced swing arm that weighs nearly 10 pounds less than its predecessor, but gains stiffness through hollow cast struts. Combined with a slightly steeper rake and a touch shorter wheelbase, the machine carves tighter without twitching. Suspension travel now stretches to 5 inches up front and 4.5 at the rear, thanks to recalibrated cartridge forks and an updated Fox monotube shock. The effect isn't radical, it's refined. Corners that once demanded muscle now invite finesse. Riders describe a sense of float at high speed, steady yet alive. The handlebars respond to light input, letting you guide rather than fight. One engineer admitted they spent more time studying rider posture than horsepower this cycle. "Power impresses the press," he said, "but balance keeps riders coming back." That's the philosophy written into every new weld. The bikes no longer just go straight fast, they flow. It's agility without compromise, touring calm with sport-bred control. And when the body moves this naturally, attention drifts upward to the cockpit, where the biggest surprise of all awaits: the smart cockpit. At first glance, it doesn't look American. The old analog gauges are gone, replaced by a clean slab of glass glowing with quiet authority. The 7-inch ride command screen has evolved into a fully digital dash that stretches across the console like something from an aircraft. Everything the rider needs, speed, range, weather radar, even tire pressure, sits behind tempered anti-glare glass. But the real story hides beneath that screen. Indian built a radar suite that rivals luxury cars. Blind spot monitors light small amber icons in the mirrors, while a rear collision alert pulses through the seat if a driver closes in too fast. It's subtle, not theatrical, more whisper than alarm. The interface doesn't distract, it informs. It feels designed by riders, not marketers. Older bikers might grumble about screens invading their handlebars, but once they see how the system responds, they quiet down. The machine still feels raw, still vibrates with heartbeat, yet it now watches your back. The navigation syncs wirelessly, the music adjusts with ambient noise, and every function can be thumbed without lifting a glove. It's modern muscle, not digital fluff. Still, all that technology means nothing unless it protects you when it truly counts, when the road turns wet and the stakes rise fast. Safety that thinks. For decades, safety tech felt like a foreign language in the American cruiser world. Harley flirted with traction control, Indian dabbled in ABS, but both treated it like a necessary afterthought. That ends with the 2026 lineup. Indian's engineers baked intelligence right into the frame. The bikes now use an inertial measurement unit, 5 small sensors that track lean, pitch, and acceleration hundreds of times per second. That data feeds directly into a linked braking system. Grab too much front brake, and the rear quietly helps you. Stomp the rear too hard, and the front balances pressure before you even notice. It's not intrusive, it's invisible precision. Longtime riders call it mechanical grace. In heavy rain or sand, the system reads traction loss faster than reflexes ever could. Yet the brilliance is how it stays out of the way. There's no nanny light, no buzzkill intervention. You still control the machine. It just smooths out the physics beneath you. As one test rider said after pushing it through an emergency stop, "It felt like the bike knew what I meant, not what I did." That's the goal. Technology that serves instinct, not replaces it. Comfort and brains are fine until the bill hits the counter. The wallet beat. When the new prices dropped, the internet caught fire faster than a summer brush field. The shock wasn't about the bikes themselves, it was about the math. Indian didn't just launch a lineup, they launched a pricing ambush. The company split its offerings into 2 clean trims, Heritage and Tech. The Heritage tier carried the soul, the chrome, the classic gauges, the lines that make a man feel like he's writing history. The Tech tier added radar, digital dash, adaptive ride assist, all the bells Harley reserves for top-dollar packages. Here's where it gets uncomfortable for Milwaukee. The heritage models start a few thousand below Harley's comparable baggers, while the tech editions undercut Harley's premium by roughly the same margin. That makes for a total swing of nearly $5,000 between equivalent bikes. For the first time in years, Harley's long, reliable prestige pricing suddenly looks like a liability. Dealers can spin specs all day, but buyers with calculators see truth in simple digits. The Harley brand still carries emotional gravity, but money doesn't listen to nostalgia. Riders with mortgages, families, and fuel bills notice when they can save a month's wages without losing torque or comfort. And that's what sends analysts digging deeper. How can Indian pull this off without bleeding red ink? The value equation. The secret, according to dealer insiders, lies in production math. Indian's parent company reshaped its cost base long before the 2026 reveal. By deepening manufacturing partnerships across Midwestern plants and select overseas facilities, they created a hybrid network, domestic assembly backed by globally sourced components. The core engine still comes from America, but smaller parts ride the same supply chains that feed Asian and European factories. Efficiency without the PR backlash. That balance let Indian lower costs without shouting about it. Harley, tied to legacy infrastructure and expensive branding programs, can't pivot as fast. Their bikes are still masterpieces of machining, but every chrome bolt carries a price tag that reflects decades of corporate inertia. Indian, meanwhile, trims waist like a race team. Less fanfare, more results. Financing options seal the deal. Dealers quietly offer three-tier payment plans that undercut Harley's by-interest points that actually matter. To the average rider, that difference turns an unreachable dream into a reachable purchase. It's financial accessibility dressed in patriotism. One Midwest dealer put it bluntly, "They're not just selling bikes, they're selling breathing room." And in a market where inflation bites harder than engine rumble, breathing room sells faster than horsepower. But business math only explains part of it, because somewhere along the road, Indian started tapping into something deeper than savings. You've seen the leaks, the lineup, and the battle lines forming. But this story's just getting started. So if you want the truth before the headlines, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Because the next reveal might change the way you see every mile you've ever ridden. Loyalty on trial. Brand loyalty used to be armor. A Harley patch on your back meant you'd never glance at another tank logo. But loyalty, like chrome, dulls if you stop polishing it. Indian saw that gap and slid right into it with a calculated mix of emotion and respect. Their heritage paint program brings back war-era tones, navy blue, parchment white, deep oxblood, and pairs them with subtle nods to veteran service. Add the American assembled tags and suddenly you've got a rival that doesn't just look proud, it feels proud. They've sponsored veteran rallies, organized Ride for Valor tours, and offered service discounts that speak to the same patriotism Harley has long claimed as its own. The difference? Indian does it quietly, without speeches. Riders notice. For some, it's the first time another brand's message feels as authentic as Harley's. Harley still owns the legacy, it's tattooed on culture, but Indian now owns the momentum. Younger riders raised on digital feeds care less about decades of lore and more about modern respect. To them, loyalty is earned mile by mile, not decade by decade. The old guard feels that pressure, and it stings. And that sting turns into noise once the chrome meets the parking lot and the debates begin. The culture clash. Every rally has its soundtrack, the hum of engines, the chatter of parts, the bragging about custom builds. But this year, the tone changed. Conversations once filled with horsepower stats now circle around price tags and practicality. Harley owners defend legacy. Indian owners fire back with logic. It's not hostility, it's evolution. Riders are no longer asking which bike sounds better, they're asking which one listens better to them. In parking lots across the country, small crowds form around the new PowerPlus 112 e-bikes. Harley guys lean in, pretending not to care, but they ask questions anyway. How's the heat on that thing? What's she way loaded? What's the payment on one of those? It's curiosity disguised as critique. You can sense the shift. The rivalry has matured from chest-pounding pride to real conversation. Still, culture runs deep. Harley's mythos remains the language of American rebellion. Indian's resurgence feels like its echo, familiar yet slightly new, a remix of patriotism tuned for a new generation. One brand sings tradition, the other hums innovation. And somewhere between them, the modern rider stands, wallet in one hand, heart in the other, deciding which anthem to ride toward the next decade. You could almost hear the change in every dealership, phones ringing faster, mechanics talking lower, customers asking harder questions. Something had shifted in the air. For years, Harley was the destination. Now, riders were exploring options, quietly curious, maybe even tempted. That's how revolutions start, one uncertain conversation at a time. Those arguments echo beyond rallies, straight into boardrooms. Market fallout. The first ripples didn't come from riders, they came from the spreadsheets. Within 3 weeks of Indian's 2026 reveal, Harley dealerships across the Midwest started reporting slower test ride bookings and longer trade-in conversations. Nothing catastrophic, just hesitation. But hesitation is all it takes to shake investor confidence. By the end of the quarter, Harley's market value dipped a few percentage points, small on paper but massive in symbolism. It meant the competition had teeth again. Harley responded fast. Dealers were quietly instructed to roll out loyalty incentives, low-interest financing, accessory credits, extended service warranties. The same gestures that once drew new blood now looked like defense. Industry insiders called it the soft panic phase. It wasn't collapse, it was adjustment. The kind of movement that forces giants to stretch their muscles again after years of standing tall. Meanwhile, Indian dealers reported record pre-orders for the PowerPlus lineup, especially the Heritage Tech editions. That mix of classic styling and smart tech hit exactly where the market's pulse beats now, nostalgia balanced with utility. For the first time in a generation, two American motorcycle brands were trading blows not through marketing slogans, but through measurable consumer shifts. The storm that started in boardrooms was now rolling through garages, and out on the open road you can already feel the tension. Riders at gas stops trade glances, comparing badges and stories, wondering what to buy next. Every chrome reflection feels like a question. Stay loyal or switch sides. The rivalry isn't just back, it's personal now, and everyone feels it. And the tremors didn't stop at the border, they stirred the global field, where rivals began rewriting their own playbooks. The industry awakens. Across the Atlantic, boardrooms at BMW Motorrad and Triumph Racing watched the American clash unfold like a televised brawl. Both companies have spent years positioning themselves as the refined alternative to American muscle. Lighter, leaner, more European. But now, Indian's fusion of vintage form and digital precision made that refinement look sterile. Within weeks, leaked reports suggested both brands were exploring new mid-weight touring designs with higher torque and stripped-down luxury. The goal was clear: capture the middle ground before Indian or Harley filled it completely. Even electric startups like Zero and Verge took notes. They saw how Indian wrapped technology in heritage rather than rebellion. Suddenly, modern didn't have to mean cold. Engineers began sketching digital dashes shaped like analog gauges, electric motors tuned to mimic the low growl of combustion. The cultural lesson was spreading faster than any corporate memo could. The future sells best when it respects the past. By late summer, market analysts were calling it the revival curve. American authenticity was back in fashion, but re-engineered for the 21st century. Harley and Indian had sparked something bigger than a sales war. They'd reignited imagination in an industry that had been idling too long. Everywhere you look, factories hum with renewed purpose. Engineers sketch late into the night, chasing that perfect blend of power and soul. Even marketing teams whisper the same word again: authenticity. The world isn't watching America for nostalgia anymore. They're watching to see if it can still build legends that last. But behind all that renewed excitement hides a quieter truth, one that cuts deeper than quarterly results or horsepower charts. The hidden truth. For decades, the motorcycle world sold speed as salvation. Every ad promised more torque, more pull, more rush. But riders have changed. The new generation doesn't chase pure power, they chase experience. They want machines that endure, that protect, that let them wander without worry. Indian's 2026 lineup didn't just compete with Harley's engines, it competed with the very definition of value. The hidden truth is simple. The horsepower war is ending. Both companies have already reached the limits of what riders realistically use on public roads. The next frontier isn't performance, it's peace of mind. Safety systems, cooling efficiency, and low-maintenance engineering are becoming the new bragging rights. Even the grizzled veterans who once mocked traction control now admit that tech doesn't ruin the ride, it refines it. In the garages and online groups, the tone has softened. Discussions sound less like shouting matches and more like wisdom circles. What matters isn't who roars louder, it's who rides longer. And that shift might be the most radical change of all. It's not a battle for dominance anymore. It's a quiet agreement among riders that progress, when done right, honors the road instead of replacing it. Some riders call it progress, others call it surrender. But the truth sits somewhere between the throttle and the horizon. Technology may evolve, engines may cool, dashboards may glow, but what we chase never changes. It's freedom, wrapped in chrome and grit, roaring against time itself. That spirit still rules the road. Because in the end, it isn't the market or the motors that carry the legacy. It's the riders who keep the story alive. The road ahead. Somewhere in the distance, an early morning sun glints off chrome. Two riders, one on a Harley, one on a new Indian, cruise side by side down an empty two-lane stretch that cuts through cornfields in silence. They don't race, they ride. Their engines hum different notes, but the rhythm is the same. That's the future of American motorcycling. Not rivalry, but coexistence. What Indian sparked in 2026 wasn't a coup, it was a correction. It reminded the industry that pride means nothing without progress, and tradition means more when it evolves. Harley will answer, of course it will, it always has. And when it does, the competition will push both brands higher, faster, stronger. The real winners will be the riders who get to live through it. Someday, historians will look back on this season not as the year Indian beat Harley, but as the year the road became wider. Because when competition turns into collaboration through innovation, everyone moves forward. The logo on your tank might fade, but the miles you ride never do. They said the storm had passed, but maybe that's wrong. Maybe it never ended. Maybe it just became the wind pushing every American rider toward what comes next. For years, Harley sold pride at a premium, but Indian just priced pride for everyone. The real question is, which brand can keep your money and your miles safe? I'll be tracking every update, recall, and price shift as it happens. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve and keep your wallet from getting burned, subscribe now and join the riders who always know first. Because the next headline might be the one that decides what you ride next.